Welcome back to the Gritfully podcast. I'm your host, Janine, and today we're diving into the topic that doesn't always get the attention that it deserves, and that is insurance. Yes, insurance. I know it doesn't sound exciting, but when we're thinking about wanting to build something that lasts, it's really important. I personally am obsessed with insurance. It's one of the most critical decisions that entrepreneurs need to make. And if you're serious about growing, scaling, and generational wealth, insurance is a portion of that plan. And so, why am I so passionate about insurance? Well, I'm passionate about insurance because of a personal story that happened to me. 6 months into my entrepreneurial journey, when I started my business, I met an insurance broker and he said to me, "You should think about liability insurance." And I'm like, I'm in my late 20s. What do I need liability insurance for? I don't even know what it is really. And then, very accidentally, it was a doctor's appointment and I ended up with a cancer diagnosis. Totally unexpected, didn't run in my family, no symptoms. Through that experience, I was lucky enough to have a cancer diagnosis that had a 95% survival rate. So I was in good shape. But I went back to the insurance broker and I said, "Well, wow, I want to get some insurance." And he said, "I really can't get you insurance now because of this diagnosis." And it took me about a solid 10 years to get quality disability insurance with that diagnosis. And so what that taught me was the importance of getting insurance when you don't need it so that you are prepared for the unexpected. So that's kind of why I'm very passionate about it, right? And I think that when I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs of color, it's something that they don't think about. And when people come to me and say, "I want to start a business," one of the first things I say to them is, I don't ask them about their business plan. I don't ask them about their funding. I don't ask them about what round they are, a VC, all that stuff. I say to them, "What is your insurance plan?" Because you are the entrepreneur. So if you are not able to work, if you are not able to deliver to this VC fund or deliver to your barbershop or deliver to your hair salon or deliver to the strip mall, whatever it is, if you can't deliver, then you're out of business. And so that's very important. And when I ask that question, many of them don't have that answer. They don't. I say, "What's your health insurance plan? What's your disability plan?" And I think that I'm hoping, Christian, when I introduce you, we'll talk a little bit about insurance can be overwhelming. I think it's the type of thing where you can't do everything at once, but what are some of the important things that you can do and how do you scale up? So I might start with one type of insurance and then I may have to get another. The health insurance is one example, but I've gotten myself in a situation as my business has grown where I've been in a place where I'm so excited. I'm a great sales lady. I tell people I'm the sales lady. I'm the selling CEO. And people have said, "Large corporations, here's the deal, Denise. Get it to procurement." And you know what? It gets to procurement and I'm missing a particular type of insurance. And now I'm hustling. And I've got to push everything aside for the day. Whatever I had planned for the day is out. I've got to figure out how am I going to get this particular type of insurance and how am I going to do it quickly in such a way that the client is still going to want to do business with me. So insurance is so very important. And the other thing is, as an entrepreneur, what I've reflected on is, you're on social media and I see folks going to get GoFundMe to help an entrepreneur pay for funeral expenses or GoFundMe. I have an influencer that I follow, sharp woman, fashion. I'm a fashion person. I like fashion. I follow her because of fashion. And she had a robbery and she was doing GoFundMe on Instagram. And I said to myself, I know that you didn't have a simple policy that in place. You have 200,000 followers. That means you must be bringing income in, and you don't have a policy in place to protect you against a robbery in your own shop. So those kinds of things. And I've seen a couple of really sharp female entrepreneurs who may have had health challenges. Again, asking for $30,000, $40,000 on GoFundMe. That's not the kind of money that's going to help you if you're having a serious illness. So it's very personal to me when I think about that. I mean, I was lucky in my situation, but that's really why I'm so passionate about insurance because it's something that protects us and it helps us to mitigate our risk. It's interesting. According to a 2023 Hiscox survey, 75% of small businesses in the U.S. are underinsured, right? And this means that business owners are legally and financially liable, right, for costs that exceed their insurance limit. And when we think about Black and Hispanic and entrepreneurs of color who are underfunded generally, what must the statistics be? So this is important. I'm going to introduce our guests. I want to talk about the fact that insurance should be a proactive solution, right? Not a last resort. I think that we can also think about what type of barriers we are putting against ourselves by not having insurance, no matter where we are in our business, right? And if you're a hairdresser, if you're a barber, if you're a gardener, every type of business owner deserves insurance. And it's interesting, according to Forbes, Black business owners are more likely to be uninsured and have medical debt. So these are things that we have to think about. So I want to stop lecturing, so to speak, and have Christian talk to us. And Christian, we met a few years ago, and I was so impressed. I reached out to you randomly on LinkedIn when I was working with a financial client, and I wanted to speak to a financial planner, someone that had financial planning and financial advising experience, but of color, because I wanted my client to understand what the experience was for people of color from both the sales side, but also customer side. And you were wonderful in giving some great perspective on that. So I want to dig into the topic. I'm excited to introduce Christian, and I want Christian to talk about his extensive experience in leadership development, executive coaching, and also your experience in the insurance industry. So if you could just talk a little bit about your business, a little bit about what you do, and then we're going to go into some questions.
Sure, Deneen, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to meet you in person, and I know, and it was exciting to work with you on those projects, as you mentioned, sharing insights from diverse communities. As you mentioned, Christian Nwasike, I'm the principal and executive managing partner of a firm I started in 2019 called Practice Management Consultants. We partner with firms in the financial services arena to offer supplemental professional development, coaching, and training to licensed sales representatives who are diverse. We also consult on diverse perspectives and provide market insights on how to deepen, I'd say, wallet share within communities, leveraging diverse sales professionals. We've been in business for 5 years. I started out in the industry on the banking side, and then moved into asset management, investments, and then was an executive at an insurance company all that time, being insurance licensed and talking to my clients about risk, its management, and what the concept of insurance really is. And today, doing it on a more of a coach expertise level, and then consulting with firms is really exciting. And I'm happy to be here and talk more about insurance and the benefits that it poses for business owners.
Good. Well, I'm going to have you turn the hat from not selling, but just what are some of the practical aspects of insurance? When we think about business liability, like how important is it for a business owner to have insurance that protects them from potential lawsuits or financial damage?
So I'll say it's fundamental. Okay. Right? It's the 101, right? You and I were talking a few moments ago, and you say, hey, before you get the business plan, kind of let's talk about how we get the insurance plan kind of funded, right? I think a general liability plan is fundamental. It runs concurrent with the idea for starting the business because it protects the owner, right? And the owner's idea from getting overwhelmed by financial, I would say exposure in the case that things don't go the way that business owner wants. And so, it's fundamental. And I would say that it's critical to insure adequately. Let's not go in and say, well, I'm going to just get this amount. Right? Because that's what my pocket can understand. And then I will, eventually expand. And let's just start the business out the right way today and then move it forward.
I think so. And I don't think that people put that as a budget item.
It's not in the business plan, right? It's an item that is kind of, it's iffy. And let's talk about the real, I would say, concept of insurance, right? Then insurance is, let's put that name aside. Really, it's an idea that I come to you because I'm about to embark on something, project, buy a house, buy a car, start a business, something. And I say, I don't have enough cash flow, right, to protect me in the case something happens, which we know life will life, right?
Yes, life will life.
So then, Deneen, I've got some extra cash. You've got cash flow. How about I give you some cash, right? And should something happen to me, I come knock on your door, and you're not only will you give me back what I gave you, you'll give me more. Now, here's the upside. Here's what's in it for you, Deneen. If life doesn't life me, in that particular situation, you get to keep it. And then the next year we start all over again. Or 6 months in the case of auto insurance, right? And if you've got enough cash flow and you can take on the risk of more people, more of your friends, community, right? then you start expanding. And so truthfully, we are trading risk.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
uncertain.
Yes.
And you're saying I will buy your uncertainty for a certain amount.
Yes.
And if that uncertainty were to become certain, you can cash in.
I mean, it's so funny that you said that, because I always say that, insurance is a check that I love to write, and I'm happy that I don't have to use it, because that means that there's not a problem.
Exactly.
It
And
means
in our community, or many of our households are, a paycheck away or 4 paychecks away from,
Yes.
being
Yes.
homeless, right?
Yes.
It's painful to
It
write
is.
money,
It is.
to something and
It
not
is.
be able to use it.
It
But
is.
if you think about the trade that you're making,
I agree. I mean, yeah.
it does warrant a lot of reconsideration if it's something that's been overlooked, or there is knowledge of being underinsured, or if you just want to double check.
Could you give an example of this idea of being underinsured, or possibly financial damage, lawsuits? Just an example of that you could think of when it would have been better if a person had been better insured, or just insured at all.
Yeah, sure. So I was a sales executive at one of the largest publicly traded property and casualty companies in the United States today. And, territories down in Florida at the time, and working with a territory full of agents. And you get the phone call that you dread, right? Which is an agent calling you to say, hey, got a call from a customer who rear-ended someone, and it started a spiral, right?
Right.
And unfortunately, this person is and so those are the types of situations that we hope doesn't happen as as licensed financial consultants. And we can recommend ideas to our clients, right? But if our clients, our customers say no, then where does the liability start and stop in enforcing and continuing the issue, right? Which is why we recommend that when your insurance agent calls you and says, hey, let's schedule a meeting to go over your policy and your coverages, take the phone call, right? Because something has changed.
Yes.
Maybe not. And if not, great, but something has changed, right? And if something has changed, the agent knows, and the agent can prepare for it. So in this one particular unfortunate situation, it was a younger child between the ages of about 19 and 21 who had taken mom's car, and the idea was just to go down to the grocery store. And that, in that situation, probably kind of got distracted, veered off, picked up a couple friends, unfortunately ran a light, caused severe damage to another vehicle, including, I think it was paralysis or something like that, but caused severe damage to this other vehicle. But that vehicle hit another vehicle, and then the passengers in that vehicle got injured because of the speed at which the first car
was going.
And so, the agent, of course, was extremely concerned.
Right.
Well, from his perspective, he had done the right thing. He had tried to have, conversations with the client about,
right.
And he didn't know that the young kid had started driving, right? And the parents didn't think that they should tell the agent that the kid got a license, right? It's a permit. He's just driving to a grocery store,
right?
Whatever the story was, right? But it created a conundrum that left the client, just in almost, I mean, like I, obviously I can't, but it was so impactful to me, right? And now it is something that I generally will start planning conversations with, right? Because whether you own a business, right, or you're insuring your house, or you underinsure your car, or you basically insure it, you don't understand the exposure that asset creates for you every day when you commute. And
if those people that were injured cannot get resolution from the insurance policy,
they sue you.
They're going to sue you. They're going to go after your house. They're going to go after
everything, right? And so here's this family with this kid brilliant kid, bad choice. Uncertainty became certain.
So that's exposed. That's a good example. It's a good example. It's funny that you talked about reviewing whether or not you're insured enough. It's interesting because I want to talk about how can entrepreneurs protect their personal assets, like whether it's a house, a car, other personal items. Are there aspects that you think that they should be thinking of in terms of protecting these assets, and they should be aware of?
Yes.
And you know what? Let's break it down
Okay.
because listen, there's the sole entrepreneur.
There's a gig worker.
Right. I got my dental hygiene mobile thing going. I got my haircut thing going. I got my barbershop going. Maybe I'm a stripper. I make some money. You might have somebody that is a bookkeeper. So they're different types. So I wonder if we could kind of talk a little bit about to some all of the scenarios, or maybe they're all the same. I don't know.
Yeah, insurance. The concept is mono, but the uses are, I would say, voluminous, right? So in each of those scenarios, you describe different industries. In our industry as consultants, right?
Yes.
We get professional liability insurance.
Yes, we do.
Right. That is an added layer on top of general liability insurance, which is what we call the fundamentals, the 101, right?
Yes.
In business. And why do we have to get professional liability insurance?
Well, because we are liable.
If we say something.
Exactly. If we consult and do something that is not in the client's best interest, we can be liable for that.
Exactly. And so in each of the businesses that you described, a personal entertainer, a hairstylist, a barber, each of them would need to, kind of look at their prospective opportunities from a T-table perspective, right?
Okay.
So I'm going to protect what's coming in.
Right.
And what creates what's coming in.
Right.
And then I'm going to also kind of protect what's going out.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So the general liability insurance, the professional insurance policies, like errors and omission, that protects what's going out. Okay. What protects what's coming in is the health insurance, right?
Yes.
The disability insurance. Those types of policies that kind of stopgap uncertainty from becoming certain.
Certainty.
Right. And I think that is I would say that's the first step that a small business owner, or someone who's, thinking about starting a business, right, should kind of get to. Let's start out with a T-table, right? Ensure what's coming in, ensure what's going out. And then from there we start, okay, well, if I were in hair design or barbing, I would look for a disability policy, and I'd look for something that would insure my biggest asset, not outside of my life, my hands.
Yes.
That if I got injured, I would
I
would have coverage, one, to treat myself.
Yes.
Replace the income so I don't fall backwards.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And maybe hire attempt to replace me while I'm out.
Yes.
Right? And then kind of, continue on. Right.
Yes.
And then on the flip side, why am I insuring what's going out? Well, as a barber, you make a mistake with someone's hair. Right. Or, sanitary conditions, aren't, up to snuff, and someone gets, ill from,
you slip and fall, somebody slips and falls. Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. So you protect what's going out on that side. And so if anything comes in, it doesn't impact your cash flow and your operations.
I agree.
So that's kind of where I'd say start from a T-table, what's going out and what's coming in. And let's figure out how we insure each of those aspects.
Now, would you suggest that they just go to their local broker? I don't know what I'm doing. Where do I start?
Yeah. So I would say auto insurance is mandatory in every state in the United States. Start with your auto insurance agent, right? And then ask the question, because you already have a relationship with them.
That's true.
Right?
That is true.
If you purchased online and you don't have, or you don't have personal contacts or any resources, I would check out the National Association of African American Insurance Agents.
Okay.
NAIA.
NAIA.
Yep.
Okay.
So it's NAIA.org, NAAIA.org.
Okay. And is there one for Hispanic?
And there is also a Hispanic Insurance Association.
Okay, but
and then there's an Asian Hispanic Association, as well as a Native American one, right?
Got it.
And simple Google searches will pull up those names. For comprehensive, financial planning, there's the Association of African American Financial Advisors.
Right.
There's a Financial Planning Association, and then there's also the Financial Services Institute, where you can go in and you can connect with a financial advisor, who, similar to a licensed insurance agent, right, would do a comprehensive plan for you and set up those reviews, right, so that as things change in your life, you can make sure that you become adequately insured or protected against uncertainty.
It's funny that you said that, because in all of this, I call it this is big boy, big girl stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because when we think about what you're asking of these folks to do is to have a mature business setup. And that means payroll. That means making sure, because if you're going to go to an insurance broker and you're going to say, listen, I bring in, I'm a barber and I bring in $15,000, $20,000 a month. they're going to want to see where that comes in, right? I mean, you could have cash receipts, but they're going to want to see that you're not going to get it because you can show to them that, you have cash receipts of $15,000 for the last year. You've got to make sure that they said that you have your business set up in a way that I call mature. It's interesting. During the pandemic, I spoke to some folks that have had LLCs and no payroll and all that kind of stuff, and it damaged them when it came down to trying to get PPP loans or those types of things. When you have that whole conversation of insurance and you're doing it properly, you have to have other systems in place as well, right? And you have to have information that is available that the insurance brokers can use to tell your story and get you the proper insurance that you need.
Well, America is one of the greatest entrepreneurship economies in the world.
It is.
And it's the only country on this planet that I know you can go to sleep with an idea in your head one night and the next day wake up and be.
Yes, I agree.
Whatever the sky determines your limit is, or whatever your creator determines your limit is, I meant to say. And so in that context, we have a lot of small business owners, right, that have an idea and it starts out as a side hustle. So they're a gig worker, right?
Yes.
And maybe it's, I'm just gonna, drive Uber with my car after work.
Right.
Right. I'm gonna rent my car out with Toro, or maybe I'm just gonna cut here on the side because people say I do a great job, or maybe I'm gonna help my friends with makeup because they say I do it very, very well. Like, it's just a side gig, right? Well, I appreciate the idea of side gigs. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Now that I am, I think entrepreneurship is probably overrated. But that aside, I would say that I was one of those people that would start these side gigs and was woefully uninsured for the task I was setting myself up for.
Right.
Because it's not a matter of if, it's just when. Law of probability and averages, right? Insurance companies, they hire actuaries for this, that we just sit and it's law of probabilities, right?
You've been in business long enough, or sometimes not even that.
It just kind of happens. And so, I think that you've got to set aside enough money to protect yourself, right? For the side hustle, have the conversation. Don't be discouraged, right?
No.
The cost of insuring yourself or insuring the idea, right, is more than you can afford at the moment.
Yes.
It's the same thing as saying, oh, I don't have everything I need to start the company. I got to go.
Absolutely.
Right. So why don't we go save up for it, purchase the right policy applicable to the business, right? You talked about setting up the business the right way, open the right bank accounts, right? You could be a gig worker and you can still have a general liability insurance. You're called a sole proprietor from the Internal Revenue Services perspective, right? And so you can buy insurance as a sole proprietor to cover yourself. You could buy the disability policy, you could buy life insurance policy, you can buy a general liability policy, a professional liability. You have access to all tools as a sole proprietor. So again, go back to that T table. Ensure what's coming in, ensure what's going out.
Absolutely.
And protect yourself, right? So that when the worst happens, at least you have a partner on your side that can financially step up and help cover some of those costs.
And not only that, but I mean, it scales, right? So, I mean, as you scale as a business, I mean, my insurance needs 10 years ago are different than they are now.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm constantly having to go through each contract. Like, you have to go through each contract, especially if you're a B2B company. I have to go through each contract and make sure that I have the proper insurance for each contract. And because if you don't, those are the types of things where you can get yourself in trouble with the companies that you do business with, right? Those types of things. So that's basic stuff.
In 2021, I think I had my rudest awakening when one of my clients required certain levels of cyber coverage and required our documents to be housed somewhere, and kind of so on and so forth, and general liability policy and workers' comp. It was a very exciting experience.
And you're an insurance broker.
And I'm sitting here like, wow, right? And so then you do the cost benefit analysis, and then you're like, okay, is
worth it for me? Yeah.
Right. The cool thing about growth, right, is learning as you go, and then factoring it into the next opportunity, so that you can keep your margins.
What I will say is that a lot of these companies are not going to say, I mean, I've never heard a conversation. I don't know about you, but I've never heard a conversation where I've gone to XYZ Corporation, Fortune 500, Fortune 100 government agency. So let's talk about your insurance first before we decide if we get the contract.
Oh, no.
There's an assumption
that you have it.
Those types of things.
because it's fundamental, right? And a lot of us wouldn't consider. There was an opportunity I had once to get onto the premises of a large financial services company. They needed an insurance certificate, showing a certain dollar amount in liability. Fortunately, I was able to self-insure past that. But at that moment, I paused, right, and it was just like we prepared for this meeting, and at no point did it come up. Right, working with my team, we're like, it's an amazing learning opportunity, right? Absolutely. And so now tell other people that, and so in our coaching and our training, conversations that we're having with individuals, hey, you're thinking about working with such and such, find out what the requirements are for liability coverage, right? And then get it. And so that you have it on the ready, so when they ask you, you don't have to say, hey, let me look into it, and then you're stressed out.
That's definitely a good point, because I've never, I guess talking to you, I've just never had that. They just assume that you're going to have that, and then you speak to procurement, you're back
against the wall. Yeah. And then you show up in a way that is not like how you want to show up, because you're kind of behind the eight ball, and that's that's not ideal for I'd say diverse suppliers.
I mean, and even if you're a small, a small B2C company, if you're going to rent space, if you're going to do certain things, they expect you to have particular insurance, and they expect you to be able to sometimes have them on the insurance, right?
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. So you have to make sure that you're aiming towards having good credit, right? You're aiming towards having those types of things that are important for insurance. So I think this is the beginning of a conversation that I want entrepreneurs to think about, right? As they're getting themselves together to really grow. One of the things you and I talked about was generational wealth, right? And how can life insurance be a tool for building generational wealth? How does having proper coverage protect not just health, but also wealth? And I know there's also this conversation around annuities and all those types of stuff. So what are the key components in your mind of health and medical insurance policies that people should be looking for when they're selecting?
So that's a great question. I think, generational wealth is something that's top of mind for a lot of us. I think that it's even made its way into presidential politics, right? In each of the, candidates espousing what they're going to do to create opportunities for American middle-class families, so on and so forth. But, when you think about, I would say, life insurance covers our most valuable asset. And people would say, well, what's that? We're working on a project with an organization called Wealth and Equity. And they're working on a $500 billion campaign. Eugene Mitchell is the CEO. He's based out in New York. I've got to connect both of you, as a matter of fact. He's working on a $500 billion campaign. And what it is essentially is ensuring diverse communities with up to $500 billion worth of life insurance, their most valuable asset. So ensuring that most valuable asset up to $500 billion, and to expand access, right, for a lot of families that generally wouldn't, have that opportunity. And the idea stemmed from something that he'd done about 10 years ago with $50 billion, where today they've created almost 20 or 30 millionaire families. And where insurance companies have paid out products because the unexpected happened, right? And, one of the most satisfying feelings, even though it's hurtful in that moment, is sitting across from a family that's loved someone that was the breadwinner. You're grieving with them in that pain, but then you can also slide an envelope across the table to them to say, I know they're not here, but they thought so highly of you that they got a policy that projected out so many years worth of financial resources for you, and here you go, right? And so I think that it's very important for families to have that conversation. And if you're single and you have assets, even if you don't have assets, physical assets outside of yourself, right, it's still important to insure yourself, because insurance products have evolved over time. Today, you can actually use insurance products with riders on there to take care of critical illness, right, if it befalls you. And so it could supplement the financial strain on your other insurance policies, or even on your bank accounts, right? And so it's very important to start out with your most valuable asset, and then also from the health insurance perspective, right, get the supplemental policies that cover you in the event that anything kind of happens. And you can get a lot of packages from brokers and joining networks and trade associations. And lastly, I would say consult a financial advisor if you're a business owner.
But now, what is this program that you're talking about that Mr. Mitchell is doing, is it similar to there's a program that they have now where they're in certain communities where they're giving lower income folks like $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month as a supplement to their income to help them,
Right.
and it's been very effective. But this program Mr. Mitchell is doing is it that idea where they're actually paying for health insurance policies for these life insurance policies? What is the idea behind that?
Sure. So the idea behind this is a personal wealth plan, right?
Right.
And so we start out with the personal wealth plan and we help people become financially, I would say, comfortable,
Okay.
right? And then from there, we walk them into ensuring their most valuable asset themselves. So we don't necessarily transact, i.e., give them funds to kind of give them a better life, more so than we assign a licensed professional
Right.
that will guide them on their financial journey, leverage that personal wealth plan.
It's
Right?
interesting that you say that because a lot of the work that I do is around health equity and health disparity, right? And I would say that I have about 7 Black women that have died under the age of 50 that I know,
That's-
right? It's a lot. And that's not unusual when we look at the numbers. But what my question is, how could I have prevented that 48-year-old Black woman that died with 3 children, again with the GoFundMe? How do we get her to spend $100 or $150 a month or whatever it is? That's where I'm thinking, and that's where I'm seeing a concern. I look at another friend of mine, lung cancer at 37, and I see we're not having that policy in place impacted her 3 daughters. When I'm listening to you, I'm hearing, building generational wealth, and I think it's wonderful. I just want y'all to make sure that you spend $100 a month for whoever policy it is, so that when if anything should happen, those children at least can be comfortable till 21 or 18.
That's a generation. You just outlined what the generational wealth story is, right?
Right.
Leaving your loved ones
Right.
better off
Right. And listen,
than you were,
Right.
and not with like, oh yeah, I want them to be multimillionaires and drive Ferraris, but what I will tell you is, as I mentioned earlier, I'll just repeat this. One of the most impactful situations is sitting across the table from a family that's lost a loved one,
right.
the breadwinner, right?
Right.
And the spouse and the kids are sitting there looking at you, trying to understand if
Yeah.
they can go to college, they can
I agree.
maintain the mortgage, are they
I
going to have to
agree.
move from the neighborhood,
Yeah.
right? How badly are things going to change for them, right? And you can say, hey, I know that we miss,
Yes, that's right.
but here's a check
Right.
that at least takes the financial
No, I
pain
agree.
off the table. And for me, as a child, I lost my father to cancer, but
Yeah.
grateful that an insurance agent took the time to insure my parents and so on and so forth. And so that story kind of carries on for me and my kids. And I think that that's the way we need to take a look at it from our community's perspective, right? Because losing a parent, loved one can really devastate a
I get
kid,
it.
devastate families. But if you could cover the gap financially, and that's one less thing you have to worry about.
We're not there yet.
I think we're there. So with the Wealth and Equity campaign, with so many trade associations, we're seeing more families adopt financial plans, right?
Yeah.
The opportunity we have, though, is getting more people into the profession, licensed professionals, to meet the demand that is there, right?
Okay.
And that's where there's a gap.
But you're paycheck to paycheck. You want to get your nails done. You want to go out to a little party and stuff. So I get that. But I'm like, I've called funeral homes and given my credit card.
I know.
I've done the GoFundMe, and I'm happy to
I
do it. And I
know.
will continue to do it. I want more than that for these people.
Yeah, we've just got to do better as a community educating, and we've got to talk more about it. And that's why I was excited to come on this podcast to talk about insurance with you. We don't, right? It's taboo. It's like, oh, he's talking about insurance, she's talking about insurance, they're insurance salespeople, insurance, insurance, insurance. No, let's talk about risk. Let's talk about your most valuable assets, and let's talk about how you can protect them, right? And that's truly what insuring yourself and your assets
And I'm
is
surprised.
fundamentally
I
about.
had friends from college, and I'm like, well, you didn't plan for that. I mean, we didn't expect you were going to die at 42.
Yeah, that's the
an
uncertainty
issue.
because we've the data says it's not a matter of if, it's just when.
So, question for you: for our entrepreneurs of color listening to this, where do they start? You mentioned resources, right?
Yep.
What are the top 3 things, right, in terms of coverage that they need to be aware of? What are the basics that they just have to have?
I would say to start out, you want to start out ensuring the most valuable asset so that your idea can continue on should
Okay.
anything happen to you. And so that's life insurance.
Right.
The next, I would say, would be you want to consider getting a health insurance plan, right?
Okay.
So that if you fell ill,
Right.
got injured,
Right.
got hurt, you could take care of yourself.
Okay.
Right. So on that T table, you're ensuring the moneymaker, right?
Right.
And then a general liability policy,
Okay.
right, to protect
Right.
you and your clients.
Okay, gotcha.
And then a professional liability insurance policy that protects your product, whatever that
Where's the
product is.
disability policy?
So the disability policy comes under the health insurance policy side,
Okay,
right?
got it.
Ensuring how you make your money, right?
Got you.
So you get health, which allows you to go see doctor, you get dental, you get vision,
Right.
you get disability, short and long term. You can also pick up additional policies based on family history or, the nature of the work that you're going into to supplement the risk
Right.
that you endure every day doing that passion project,
Right.
your job or
Right.
side hustle.
And I would say that depending upon the position and the work that you do, you also want to have some type of errors and omission, and also some type of employee theft policy, and those types of things.
So those come under the professional liability insurance part.
Got it. Okay.
Right, and that's what you and I both have, right?
Right.
So we've got these professional liability policies that kind of protect us. Licensed insurance agents, licensed financial advisors, they have that, and that protects the client, right,
Yes.
from errors and omissions in the course of doing work together. So, I think those are where
Basics.
where they should start, right? Kind of, and then move on from there. I would say connect with a financial professional, right?
I agree.
One of the things that I've learned as a business owner is that I'm a great entrepreneur,
Right.
but I'm horrible at a couple other things,
Right.
right? And so we leverage, our expertise, and I consult with my financial planner, my insurance agent regularly to understand what my gaps are, if there are any, and how to move on from there. Because that's a blind spot that I
It
have.
is.
I don't wake up thinking about insurance.
No,
They do,
They do.
right? I wake up thinking about my company, how I'm going to nurture it, grow it,
Absolutely.
and expand business. So, yep, I'd say find a partner.
All right, we're gonna get into the grit of this. We're gonna talk a little bit about grit. The name of this podcast is Gritfully. It's a name that I've made up, and a lot has to do with my immigrant father, who told me one day as he was watching me present. He said, "You have a lot of grit, Deneen." And I looked up. I said, "What does grit mean?" And it kind of made sense to me when he used that word to describe me. And I think that you have to have a lot of grit to be an entrepreneur. So I'm curious to know, as we talk about this idea of grit, I want you to share your definition of what does grit mean to you, and specifically in the context of an entrepreneurship and even insurance.
Your dad was a smart man, identifying that with you, and you at a very young age, and nurturing that with you. I would say, grit is the equivalent of perseverance,
Yes.
right? Consistency, showing up in spite of, right?
Yes.
And that's kind of how I would look at grit.
Showing up in spite of. Tell me about that.
Well, life will life,
That's true.
right? Law of probability says it's not a matter of if, but when.
Right.
And we all know that we are not getting out of life alive.
No, that's true. That's true.
Right?
That's true.
So, yeah, it's, just you will, as a business owner or as a human, you're going to have down times.
Yes.
And consistency, the grit, the perseverance, the attitude, right? Not the motivation, because motivation is fleeting.
Right.
It's here today. Some days you wake up and you're like,
Yes.
I'm going to take on the world.
Right. That's true.
And then there are other days where you're like, man, who set that alarm clock this early?
Right.
And it's those days where grit comes in, right? The repeating behaviors, the continuity, right? To keep driving for that, I would say, outcome.
Right.
That
That's true.
your desired outcome. So,
Do you think this grit needed as it relates to insurance too?
well, I mean, I think there's grit. Grit is needed as it relates to everything on the seller side and on the buyer side. So, I would say I'm a buyer of insurance. I use insurance, and it requires perseverance and consistency to maintain policies, right, that allow you, I would say, get preferred rates
Yes.
down the road, right? So
Right.
you talked about having an experience, a health scare,
Yes.
with cancer earlier, and how much it cost you and how long it took you to get better insurance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one story. We talk about getting insurance on your car early, and trying to settle down, get married, have a house,
Right.
all
that
these
stuff.
stuff, right? So that down the road, 20 years in, right, your insurance policy rates are a heck of a lot better, than when you started, have gone down almost 100, 200% in many cases. I'm experiencing that, right? But the older I get. And so those are very, very important factors.
Can you describe a time in your journey as an entrepreneur when you had to rely on grit to get through a challenging situation?
Wow. I look forward to challenging situations, not because I enjoy challenging situations. It's what I learned from those challenging situations.
I agree.
That's the part that's really exciting. And
Right.
so, it's funny when I have my quiet time, I'm always in these thought processes of, man, if I could just get the meat, right?
Right.
But then I always come back to, that's not how you learn.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, you
No.
learn, I learn
Yeah.
by going through the situation.
I agree.
And then coming out on the other side, and I'm
Right.
like, ooh, okay, that hurt. That was
hurt.
great.
It did.
And you take all the lessons and then
Do
you
that.
use that in that
To do that.
process to kind of go forward.
Right.
And so there's so many of them. I would tell you, okay, one of the most exciting opportunities that I had recently was running for political office. This was, a decade plus ago. And I was in Florida at the time, campaigning across 5 counties. That was the length of the congressional district at the time, around economic empowerment, economic impact. And I was trying to unseat an incumbent. Bad idea, first of all.
Right.
But I believe I could do
You
it.
could do
right?
it, right.
Yeah, and that was it, man. You start, right? The journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. Well,
That's true.
I crisscrossed that community, and I would talk with people at their kitchen tables, and they would tell me that they were going to vote for me,
Right.
and they committed, and the whole nine, and
Right.
I lost. Right, I lost the race, and don't remember what the margins were, but they weren't the best, and I remember sitting back and feeling defeated. Because I'd given it my all, and limited financial resources to kind of put it all. And from there, that loss impacted my business, impacted my marriage,
Yes.
my kids,
Yes.
right? The whole
Yes.
nine. And perseverance, consistency, right, is what brought me back from that, right?
Okay.
Because in that same time period, lost a real estate portfolio as well, several houses at that same time. I mean, it rained, it just poured, right?
Yes.
And I remember sitting with my my financial consultant at the time, she was an older mentor of mine. She's like, "Oh, it's going to take you a decade at minimum to come back from this."
Yeah.
And I was like,
No, it won't.
"I'll do it in 7." I did it in 4.
It's funny that you said that, because why I asked you that question is the first episode of this podcast was with my dad.
Yep.
And he talks about this idea of folks romanticizing entrepreneurship.
Mm.
And so I asked these questions, and I was just talking to the gentleman about some experiences that I've had, because it's important that people understand that the entrepreneurship journey, right, there's a lot of grit involved. You have to have perseverance, and you can't romanticize it. I mean, there are beautiful parts of it, but there are times when you have to practice restraint. You've got to practice what I call humility, right? And all those types of things. So that's why I was asking you about that example. And I'm sure at that point, to lose a race and then be impacted financially, there's nothing romantic about that at all.
There's nothing romantic about it, right? And so it's consistency that shows up,
Right.
and then and those behaviors that allow you to restrain yourself,
Yes.
right? That allow you to engage with people or re-engage or believe,
Yes.
right? You even fast forward 20 years later, I'm still advocating for diverse communities, right?
Right.
Economic impact, which is
Absolutely.
what my congressional campaign
Right.
was all about way back then, right? And so, ups, downs, in betweens, right?
Right.
But I will say that if you have this desire in your heart that is so burning,
Right.
that you want to do every day, right? I haven't come across text yet in any religious studying I've done,
Right.
that says that, one, we get out of this thing alive,
That's true. That's true.
and two, like, you will not encounter difficulty in your existence.
That's true.
I haven't come across that yet. Still looking for it.
That's true.
And when I decided that I will experience difficulty regardless of what I do, then I got into a better place as a business owner. Right? As a business owner, what are some of the immediate difficulties we experience? Cash flow.
Yes.
We get a client.
Yes.
We're excited to land the client, but
Yes. We're not going to get paid for 90 days.
right? And then we don't think about the repeat business.
Right. Exactly.
right? So we
Right.
get the client, we finish the deal, and we're like, okay, what's the next one, right? And then we have the highs when
And
we
the
get the client, and we get the lows, right?
Absolutely.
Today, what you and I do as consultants is help business owners systemize and streamline, right, that
Right.
business process.
Right.
That's what grit is about, right?
Right.
I'm helping you streamline the highs and the lows
Right.
so that you show up consistent every time.
Right.
You're going to have great years
Yep.
and horrible years. Perseverance, showing up,
No, it's true.
doing the behaviors that helped you get the first client in the
Right.
first place.
And we'll get the other ones.
That's the grit. That's a trick question, right?
Well, I asked you that question because I could tell from the way you were talking that you make it sound like anyone could be an entrepreneur. And I have some friends and I'm like, no, go and get the job and stay in that job.
Yeah. Well, I would say a person who is comfortable with a level of risk that is above the norm,
That's true.
right? It's the
Yes.
most polite way I've come to understand that.
And you have to manage that risk internally.
Yes. Yes.
What does that mean? That means you can't. I'm freaking out today because today I've got to find insurance in 24 hours. You've got to just.
I mean, you're going to have people call into work. You're going to have projects not go as you plan them to, and how you show up, right? That's crucial as a business owner, right? Because one of the things that we talk about as consultants when people talk about their ideas in business expansion and so on and so forth, we say, who are your board of directors? And a lot of people are like, oh, my board of directors or my mom, my best friend.
Right.
Okay. I will tell you that when you have a situation, when life's, right? If you don't have the right board of directors and you present the situation and they can't help you, then you're worse off than you were because now you've wasted more time.
I agree.
Getting a board of directors together.
Can't help you.
They can't help you. So I always say, hey, who are your board of directors, right? And don't go with people that are going to make you feel comfortable,
No.
right? Go with people that stretch you.
Yes.
It's very uncomfortable having conversations with people that you don't know.
No.
And asking them to teach you something that you don't know. But I promise you, when you finish learning what you don't know, it is well worth the uncomfortability that comes with asking the question in the first place.
And if you find the right person, they're happy to help.
Many people are. I ask questions all the time. Many people are. They're just like, yeah, hey, yeah, sure. I'll tell you about it. I asked you a question earlier.
Yes.
I asked you a question last week, right? Like, I'm always asking questions.
I'm the same way. I'm not too humble to not ask, questions. Yeah.
And then I would say I would make that synonymous with loving learning.
Yes, definitely. I think so too. And you can't know it all, right? You can't. So I wanted to kind of wrap up a little bit and talk a little bit about the fact that insurance is essential for protection, risk management, and building wealth.
Yes.
And for whatever stage you are as an entrepreneur, if you made it through 20 years and you haven't needed insurance, that doesn't mean it's not a good time for you to start.
Law of averages, and I'm not being
true.
negative, right? But they're actuaries, they're data scientists that chart these things out.
It's really vital to any business success. Really, we know that most small businesses, are underinsured, and we need to address it aggressively, specifically businesses of color. I want you to see if you have any takeaway as it relates to business and insurance.
Sure. And I appreciate anyone who has enjoyed listening to the podcast. I would definitely say, hey, start a conversation with your insurance agent. If you have an insurance agent and a financial advisor, they're happy to work together. Bring them in, into the meeting and have a consultation about your financial. There are so many trade associations that you can reach out to if you don't know where to start. National Association of African American Insurance Professionals.
Okay.
NAAIA.org.
Okay.
Association of African American Financial Advisors, Financial Planning Association, and so many more. On their website, you'll find an opportunity, to connect with an advisor, a licensed professional near you. The whole exercise would probably take you 120 minutes, but it would be the best amount, 120 minutes that you spent from start to finish, right?
And I think we're both examples of why it's important. We both talked about the fact that we've got ourselves into really great situations and we're not prepared.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Luckily, knock on wood, we were able to hustle. But I think that many of the entrepreneurs should learn from our situation, and you don't want to be in that situation. We were lucky, but it could have been the kind of situation where procurement said, well, we can't get that insurance certificate in 48 hours. we can't help you. And the insurance broker says, well, I can't get it until 72 hours. So now you've got to go back to the client and say to them, I was unprepared. So I'm hoping that folks listening to this will learn from our experiences. All right, well, that's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. And don't forget to like, follow, and connect with us at Zebra Strategies, at Gritfully, on Instagram at Zebra Strategies, Twitter, Zebra Strats, LinkedIn, Facebook, look up Zebra Strategies, zebrastrategies.com, and check me out on TikTok and IG, Deneen_Rodney. And in the words of my Jamaican grandmother, walk good.